right, so we're talking about how you get into business and like share or refer or, when you have a good experience with someone, that's really important.
Yeah.
Especially in my business, obviously as a realtor, the whole idea about making contacts and keeping in touch, like with you, how that's turned out to be wonderful, right?
Yeah. And word of mouth.
Word
networking.
of mouth, absolutely. And so if I did a good service for you, then you're going to feel more confident to be able to say, hey, let me give you a name of an agent that I know, the
100%,
realtor
yeah.
who did a good job. It's going to go out there for you. So I had a past client who still thinks I'm great, and they gave me a referral. And so they needed to sell their home, which is in another state, and buy here. And of course, they didn't live here. So it meant, hey, well, when we come into town, we need to be able to go look at these houses. And so you really have to try to coordinate everything. But they're like, we need to sell our house here. Can you help us with that? Well, I can't because I'm not licensed in that other state. But because of networking, because of all the different conferences, people that I know and connections that I make, I knew that I had some people in that area that I could refer to. But you want to make sure that person is actually going to do the right job, right? Mm-hmm. Just like if we give lender referrals or we give home warranty referrals or we give insurance company referrals, there's no pay for giving that referral. That's just quality of service. You've been able to take care of our clients. We're going to make sure that if there's another question or opportunity that you get that.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to stay connected into it. So separate from this conversation, because all of this has worked out really, really well. There's been a little bit of, wanting to make sure that we could coordinate things correctly. But I had received this call, just random. So I did answer my phone, like most people should, right? And this guy is like going on and on, hey, Tam, and talking to me like he knows me. And I'm thinking, boy, the voice doesn't sound familiar. The name didn't register in my phone as one of my contacts. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll go along with this. We'll talk. And he's like, well, I want to see this property. I want to take a look at it. And I'm like, where exactly is this property located? It was out in Anaheim, California. I'm like, oh, well, I would love to be able to work with you, especially since it's freezing cold in Ohio at that point. However, did you mean to call me or were you trying to call somebody else? And he's like, and so he says another last name. And I'm like, no, sorry, that's not me. I would absolutely love to help you. Sounds like a great project that you're wanting to get involved. But he's like, well, wait a minute. Don't you know people? You know people out here? I'm like, yeah, I know people. I mean, are you legitimate? Don't you want to call the person you intended to call?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, but you answered on a Saturday morning. I think that's pretty great.
How did he get you?
So, everybody's Google whatever. You Google a name, you put Tammy Murphy Realtor or whatever, or you think you type in the last name. So her last name also started with an M. But maybe I ranked higher on Google. I don't know. And so he just actually ended up calling me, didn't register in his mind. He's oddly enough from our area, just happens to be out in California. So that part probably didn't mean anything, right? But as he's talking, it was just, I am pretty good with my names, especially if I've done work with people.
Yeah.
Or had any time with them. Like if you call me Tam, you probably know me pretty well because that's not a common name people refer to me as.
Yeah.
But, so funny story though. So he's like, yeah, well, you answered on a Saturday morning, so I would rather work with you if you can find an agent, refer me, do whatever, get your ass on a plane and come on out and we'll do this deal together. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't work like that, but
yeah.
let me see what I can do. So when I do a referral to an agent, obviously that's important to me to make sure that they are going to bring the type of service that is reflective of what I would do. It may not be the same style or anything, but at least reflective of good quality professional services, right? So we had oddly just had our national conference was in Anaheim, so I had connected with some people there locally. So I go through my contacts and I called out to a couple of people, couple that didn't answer, one who said, hey, I'll get back with you in just a little bit. Let me check on a couple of things. And so as I had a conversation with her she was saying, well, what exactly? And so I explained, and I said, I'm going to be honest. I don't know this person. Like, this is what they've presented to me. So on the surface, and she says, well, I was curious. I was going to ask because we actually have a scam that's going on in our area. And I don't know if there's been like this workshop where people have been paying money in order to learn the benefits and how to make this deal transaction happen. But we have had this rash of activity. And she said, and it is exactly what you're explaining, what they are calling it as a silver project. So the word silver is referring to elderly people, people who are needing, and so catchphrases that are triggered to this. She was like, that's why I wanted to make sure I was understanding what exactly. And I said, well, first of all, since I can't actually vouch for this person, that's a concern, especially if it's something that you're seeing rampant going on right now. Thank you for explaining to me. And here's the thing. I take precautions when I meet somebody that I don't know, especially if I'm showing them a vacant house. I'm going to take even more precautions. So you kind of level up where you are on the risk factor, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I'm not just going to go out and meet somebody because it's dangerous, not happening. And especially in the areas where they are talking about some of these projects, she says, nah, not happening. And I said, well, I respect that. I said, thanks for at least clarifying and giving me the background information. She says, well, if you go back and you ask him this, this, and this, then we'll know if we have reasons to either communicate and go further, or it's just not going to happen. So ended up that he couldn't answer some of these questions because he was talking about partners that he was bringing into the deal, and they have all the money and all of this. And so it started getting way obscure and vague, and your radar starts going off and everything like that.
What is that called? Where you bring the buyers together and then you get paid somehow?
Well, you're talking about wholesaling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do these, like, you can go down to the Marriott and you can go to, like, a convention for the day and they teach you how to do it or something, and you pay this money.
What's really, really funny about this, let me just tell you, if you worked with a realtor, that realtor is going to give you that information and help you work those deals.
That's what I thought when, because I have, known a couple people that have, gone there to this workshop or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do they need you?
Right.
It's almost like they're trying to be an unlicensed realtor.
Exactly. I actually went to one when it came to the Dayton area because I'm curious what you guys are trying to sell. For $3,997 today, special, we'll give you all the things you need to know in order to be able to buy and sell real estate without using a realtor. And I'm in the audience. Why wouldn't you want to use a realtor? Because you're talking to people who are trying to buy in multiple states, so they're not necessarily feet on the ground. They're not aware of where they're buying or selling. You're basically setting them up to do a buy without seeing, right? Sight unseen purchase, and they're going to put their money out. But before they do, wait, let me give you my $4,000 so that you tell me how to do this. If you want to buy a property, call a realtor. And we're going to help you see, is this something that you can buy? What do you need to do, right?
Yeah.
Here's the process.
Yeah.
There's no game to it. There's no magic answer. If you think it's just throw a letter into the wind and the seller is going to be, oh, yeah, let me do that deal, and I'm going to sell it for half the price, not going to happen.
Right.
You need to have these connections.
Well, a lot of these workshops will tell you to, go through and find homes where people have died, or that the kids have inherited it, or it's empty, or literally walk around neighborhoods and
look at vacant homes.
Yeah, look at vacant homes.
And some of them are actually looking for that information from you because guess what? You're going to get bogged down because you don't understand. When you get your first 3 no's, you're going to be like, oh, this isn't for me. But they've got all the information and contact from you that they can go scoop up on some of the deals if there are deals to be made. Mm-hmm. It's just such a game. And that's the thing. That is really what's sad, is that there is a process that will help people to accomplish their end goal with real estate. And yes, there are times when maybe you don't want to use a realtor. I don't know why, but for your protection, use somebody who's going to help guide you through that process, and more importantly, make sure that you're not being taken advantage of.
Right.
That's the key, right? Having that person who represents your best interest. But if a workshop is telling you for this amount of money, you pay us and we'll give you all the answers, I don't know any industry where it's that easy.
Yeah.
You have to put forward some work. You have to do some due diligence, and you have to put out some money, but maybe not $4,000 in order to get a list. Right. Maybe it's a couple $100 for advertising, or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, off topic, but kind of in the same idea is that probably had gone to a workshop, probably was told that this is the new wave, and it's creating these silver project group homes where an elderly person who can't live on their own, because obviously fixed income, can come into this community type living, communal living home, and assets are kind of commingled, and they get the benefit of not having all the full burden responsibility. But for that, they're paying these people to find them the right house, and these people are coming in and trying to find those deals. So anyway, ultimately ended up, the one thing that he had said when we were talking was that really was, nope, I know this is definitely not supposed to be me, because he was referring to me in a very friendly manner, and I'm like, I don't think I know you.
Yeah.
But then he's like, well, your son can get out here and he can handle all the insurance on it. And I'm like, I don't have a son who's doing anything with insurance.
Yeah.
So that is definitely not the case. And that's when I said, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be, you thought you were talking to somebody else, didn't you? And I get that happens in our area, because believe it or not, there is another Murphy, not a Tammy Murphy, but Tammy Murphy in New Jersey, which I don't want to be confused with. But, it's somebody thinks Tammy, they get the first Tammy that comes up. It may be just different spelling. So just make sure. Sometimes, yes, I'll take that call.
So was this guy doing that silver thing?
Yeah. I mean, basically I told him that after talking with her, she had some concerns. These are the questions that we would need answered. Couldn't provide those answers. In all, I have to respect her business. And I obviously, just like you got a hold of me, I guess, call your friend and see if she'll answer and see if she wants to do the deal. But I'm not going to be able to facilitate. I wasn't going to go through another agent to find somebody willing to do it, because I didn't want to be involved with it if it was a scam or not legit either. I don't want my name associated with it at that point.
So earlier you talked about how if you refer to another agent in another state, how do you kind of check up on them?
Most of the time, it's not really that you have to check up on them. When you have a person who's buying and selling a home in two different locations, you're going to want to have some conversation about, did you get into a contract? What are your contract dates, so that we can make sure our contract dates are going to happen? So there was some of that communication that was going on. But in this particular case, my client reached out and said, didn't really like how this was being handled. This isn't what we expected. And at that point, I had stepped in to have the conversation with the other agent and say, hey, just so we're clear, is there a reason why this was happening? Because that wasn't their expectations. And it's not so that I can micromanage at that point, but it's just to make sure that the client is being served.
Yeah.
And sometimes a client will build that relationship with me, but maybe not have that same relationship with the other agent. So they're not necessarily comfortable in saying, what the heck are you doing? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Whereas they'll say, what the heck is she doing? Why is she doing that? And so for that reason, I can be the go-between. Just like with our lenders, clients and I will build a relationship that may be different than what they build with that lender.
Yeah.
So, well, why does he need all of this? And why isn't he doing this? And what if, right?
Yeah.
Well, I can help kind of work through that and then take it to the lender or the other party and say, hey, what do we need to do in order to this? And maybe if you explained this a little bit more to them, they would have no hesitation, or, whatever. Bridge the gap, basically.
Yeah.
So we have that happen a lot.
Oh.
Well, I mean, sometimes.
Yeah. And even local, when you refer somebody, you want to make sure that it's a good referral.
Absolutely. And and that's what we tell them, is that we don't get anything by giving you a recommendation, right? But if you have a great experience, that's helpful for me to know. if you have a bad experience. That is absolutely important for me to know, because I don't want another client to go through that. I certainly apologize that you've gone through this.
Right.
But I will remove that person off of my referral list because I won't allow that situation to happen again.
Yeah.
Things happen. Yeah, there's maybe a mishap and just miscommunication in one aspect. Doesn't mean that that's a detriment that they come off of the list. But I'm very protective of who I refer for that reason.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't done this in a minute, but what is your tip for referring?
Oh, the tip for referring, I think, from the client perspective?
Any
or
of them.
from any of it.
Yep.
Tip for referring is, obviously, if you get great service, it's great for you to give out and refer somebody. That is a huge compliment to validate that you appreciated what service you received. And the flip side of that is, if you're getting somebody's referral, you know, if your normal is to answer and do and all of these things and you're just awesome and great anyway, then it's probably not that big of a different aspect for you. But you might want to, hey, let me do a little extra something. Let me make sure that this person really knows that they're appreciated because they didn't come through the normal channels that I normally get my clients. So I want to make sure they feel appreciated and not just taken it into, not just taken for granted, you know, because some people could do that too, where I didn't really have to work for that business, so I really don't have to do anything. Shame on you. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Like, step it up and let's just make all the bells and whistles go off and everybody's happy, right?
Yeah, because if something would to go wrong, you're not only losing that one client, you're losing two.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the person who referred then gets the negative, that didn't work out, is like you're off their list.
Yeah, right.
Thanks for joining us today on the Realty Podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. We will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.